How's it going, everybody? My name is Noah Holly, and welcome back to another episode of the Pride Report, CollegePridePress.com's daily college basketball show. Today is Thursday, so I'm going to be previewing the weekend. It's been a while since I've done a proper weekend preview episode, so I absolutely cannot wait to get started. Let's not waste any more time. Episode 21 begins right now. To kick off today's show, I'm going to be recapping last night's games. Let's start with Virginia hosting Louisville. UVA picked up their 13th consecutive win Wednesday, beating the Cardinals 74-64 thanks to a hot shooting night. Louisville fell to 6-3, but their courageous comeback attempt was a win in itself. Rallying from a double-digit second-half deficit against Virginia's suffocating defense to make the game interesting is no easy task by any means. It's so difficult to mount a comeback against a team that just refuses to play at a pace they aren't comfortable with and never makes mistakes or suffers a lapse in composure. Virginia would play down 30 the same way that they would play up 30, which is what makes facing them a truly maddening experience because no matter what you do, you just can't phase them. Like UVA, Purdue picked up a win Wednesday night to stay perfect in conference play. The Boilermakers knocked off the sliding Maryland Terrapins 75-67 behind another big night from Isaac Haas to extend their school record to 18 straight wins. Haas can be absolutely unguardable at times, and last night was no exception. In other Big Ten action, Michigan State survived a huge night from Tony Carr to avoid an upset and beat Penn State 76-68. Miles Bridges had 23 points. I wish that he drove the lane and created shots for himself more often because his game is so polished. I just hate to see it wasted on three-point shots. Not that he's not a good deep shooter, but he's just not getting the most out of his skill set when half of his attempts are behind the arc. Let's talk SEC hoops for a bit. Tennessee manhandled LSU 84-71. LSU has hit a serious bump in the road. Tremont Waters' recent struggles have proved too much to overcome for a Tigers team that finds its NCAA tournament hopes on thin ice. Missouri topped Alabama 69-60. If you're Alabama, you have to be disappointed with this effort, especially following a statement win over Oklahoma. Serious letdown for the Tide. Cincinnati stayed untouched in AAC play, recovering from an 18-point first-half deficit to beat Houston 80-70. The Bearcats went on a 14-0 run that spanned both halves to tie the game up and a 10-0 run late in the second to pull away for good. Cincinnati's play over the final 23 minutes or so of this game confirmed what I assumed was true, that the Bearcats are far and away the best team in the American. Cincinnati didn't get down on themselves after a horrendous start, and started to hit shots, get to the line, protect the ball, and continued to chip away until Houston was buried for good. It was really impressive. I'm excited to see Cincinnati play this March because I think that they have what it takes to be a second or third weekend team. All right, I try to refrain from saying this at all costs, especially now with a month of regular season hoops to be played. But West Virginia, it is time to hit the panic button. The Mountaineers were absolutely humiliated by Iowa State last night, losing 93-77 to a Cyclones team that had been beaten by a combined 39 points in each of their past two games. At this point, I'm just running out of answers for West Virginia's skid. There's no excuse for their lazy, low-energy defensive effort, which allowed Iowa State to hit 62% of their shots last night. West Virginia is famed for making opponents' lives miserable, but the Mountaineers are the ones in misery after allowing 82-plus points in 3 consecutive games now. You're not supposed to be able to run all over West Virginia, but that is exactly what Iowa State did. The Mountaineers were unable to force turnovers and had nothing to fall back on in terms of half-court defense, and what resulted was one of the more shocking losses of the Bob Huggins era. It takes a lot for me to hit the panic button, but last night's performance just left no doubt in my mind that it was what had to be done. Texas Tech beat Texas in yet another thrilling Big 12 contest. Now let me tell you, Keenan Evans is a cold-blooded specimen. The senior guard had 38, including a step-back buzzer beater to win the game. That was one of the coolest plays I've seen all season, and the Red Raiders were able to knock off their rivals 73-71 in overtime. Now, there's a lot of things that I like about Keenan Evans, and I'll try to summarize it here. Evans is just the classic stud point guard. He gets to the line a million times a game, and he always seems to come up big when he's needed most. Honestly, he's just one of the best players in the country, and I will not rest until we, as a community, recognize just how good of a player he is. That's going to do it for my Wednesday recap, so let's move right along. Let's briefly discuss tonight's action before diving into this weekend's slate. Villanova will host Creighton at 6:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. This kicks off a four-game homestand for the nation's top team. Now, you may think that Villanova is a little bit more vulnerable now than they were in weeks past because Phil Booth is sidelined with an injury, and defensively that is the case, but offensively I might have to disagree. I think that Booth's absence will result in Jalen Brunson taking on a bigger scoring role, which I think actually benefits the Wildcats. Brunson's offensive skill set is on another level, but he's more of a facilitator than a scorer. But I've no doubt in my mind that he's capable of putting up 30 points per game to make up for Booth's 11 points per game that Villanova will be missing from their nightly lineup. 16th ranked Wichita State will go on the road to face Temple. If recent history is any indicator, Temple will either beat the Shockers or lose by 40. Early in the season, I was calling for a top four finish in the American, but the Owls have been plagued by inconsistency all season long. They say unpredictability is what makes college basketball fun, but I'm not having any fun watching Temple this season. They make my head hurt with confusion. There's some interesting mid-major action tonight as well. Old Dominion will host Middle Tennessee in a Conference USA first place battle. Old Dominion's play has me questioning whether Middle Tennessee is the surefire favorite in this conference. This is a huge game, but unfortunately from what I can tell, it is not on any TV. Charleston at Northeastern is another first place battle, this one coming in the Colonial Athletic. I'm going to be talking about this conference in my mid-major Outlook series next week, so be sure to stay tuned for that. With that being said, that's going to wrap up this segment. So let's move right along and discuss Saturday's games. Welcome to the Pride Report Saturday preview. If you don't know how any of this works, basically I run through every game of interest on Saturday, starting from the morning games and working my way up from there. It takes a little while, so let's go ahead and get started. At noon Eastern Time on Fox, Duke will travel to face St. John's in an out-of-conference matchup. The Red Storm have lost 11 in a row and are winless in Big East play, but have shown a tendency to play to their competition. I highly doubt that will be the case in this game, however. Duke is growing up and learning how to avoid the rookie moments and lengthy stretches of poor play that have hurt them at times this season. Kansas hosts Oklahoma State at noon on CBS. OSU has lost 3 in a row since upsetting Oklahoma a few Saturdays ago. Kansas, on the other hand, is the one team in the Big 12 that has consistently performed well versus the bottom half of the conference, so I expect that they will continue to roll and knock off the Cowboys on Saturday. UConn will take on Cincinnati, also at noon. Just when you thought the season couldn't get any worse for the Huskies, it was announced last week that the program was subject to an NCAA investigation. If you want to get caught up on that, Nick Schwartz has a great piece over at collegepridepress.com. I'll link you to it in the description below if you want to check it out after watching this video. But in terms of this particular game, UConn is one of the worst offensive teams in the country, so I fully expect Cincinnati's defensive toughness to swallow the Huskies whole. TCU draws Texas Tech Saturday at 2 p.m. on ESPNU. These teams match up extremely well with one another. They both have 5 or 6 guys that can score from anywhere on the court and defend well. Basically, Texas Tech and TCU are my kind of college basketball teams. In terms of my prediction, I think I'm going to go with TCU. I might change it before Saturday. I'll have to let you know on Twitter. Missouri hosts Kentucky at 2 p.m. on CBS in a crucial game for the Tigers. I'll definitely be keeping my eye out for this one because there are a few bubble teams that need a signature win as badly as Missouri does. On the other hand, Kentucky is looking for an easy win. I don't know if the Wildcats have cruised to a victory at any point during SEC play. They're still figuring out how good they are, so an upset win for Missouri is not out of the question. Virginia Tech will host Miami at 2 p.m. on ESPN. The Hokies are back in NCAA tournament contention after winning 3 in a row, including Wednesday's overtime win over Boston College. Miami could definitely use Bruce Brown's defensive ability against Virginia Tech's high-flying backcourt in this one. In the Hurricanes' most recent losses, they allowed their opponents to shoot at a ridiculously high clip. Virginia Tech is an excellent jump shooting team, so Miami must step up defensively in this one if they are to win. Winthrop will take on Radford in a Big South battle. Someone has got to slow down Winthrop, who has won 6 in a row after a 1-3 start in conference play. And the first meeting between these two teams, which was, it was last month. I keep forgetting that it's February. But anyway, in the first meeting between these teams, Radford rode a huge first half to a comfortable win over the Eagles. I don't expect to see a repeat of that on Saturday afternoon. At 2:30 p.m., Michigan hosts Minnesota on Fox. The wheels have absolutely fallen off for the Gophers, who find themselves at 3-8 in Big Ten play and losers of 4 straight. Throw your preseason predictions out the window. Minnesota is a bad team. They suffer from inconsistent effort and a terrible defense and do not belong in any postseason tournament whatsoever. Exactly how it all went wrong is probably a 10-minute segment in itself, so I'll cut it short here. Look for Michigan to cruise to a win on Saturday. Also at 2:30, Marquette will meet up with Providence. Both teams will be looking to snap losing streaks when they meet up on Saturday. Providence has been walloped in back-to-back games by Villanova and Seton Hall, while Marquette has dropped 3 in a row. Most recently, a shocking blowout loss to Butler on their home floor. This is a must-win game for both teams. Virginia puts its unbeaten conference record on the line when they travel to take on Syracuse at 4 p.m. on ACC Network. Syracuse always plays Virginia tough, as this has developed into somewhat of a rivalry after their instant classic Elite Eight matchup from a few years ago. But you get the feeling that this could potentially be another instance of UVA holding an opponent to below 50 points, considering Syracuse's offensive struggles as of late. Number 3, Purdue goes on the road to face Rutgers Saturday at 4 p.m. on Big Ten Network, and a matchup of two teams trending in very different directions. Rutgers cemented their status as the worst team in the conference a few days ago after losing to Illinois by 31 points. So I anticipate an easy win for Purdue in this one. West Virginia faces Kansas State at 4 on ESPN2. We talked about West Virginia's struggles a little bit earlier, so let's discuss Kansas State. With the exception of 2 crushing losses to Kansas, the Wildcats have won 5 in a row now. I like Kansas State's chances to make the tournament this season. We're going to have to see how everything turns out. There's certainly a lot of opportunities for big wins in the Big 12. But anyway, Barry Brown and Dean Wade are big-time talents and huge matchup problems. I might have to pick K-State in this one, mainly because West Virginia's recent play has been so brutal, and second of all, I'm really high on the Wildcats right now. Florida hosts Alabama. It's been a rough week for both of these teams. Florida suffered a head-scratching loss to Georgia, and Alabama responded to a season-altering win over Oklahoma with a terrible performance against Missouri. I don't think Florida is a bad team, and I don't think Alabama is a bad team. I think Florida lives and dies by the three-point shot, and I think Bama has talented pieces, but at times no one steps up behind Colin Sexton. The 4 p.m. time slot features another great small conference matchup as Vermont takes on UMBC. If you remember my America East segment from a few episodes ago, I talked about UMBC's surprising rise to prominence. They have a huge opportunity to pick up a statement win at home in this one. Due to the overall weakness of the conference, we haven't had as many Pac-12 showdowns this season as I expected. This game is one of them. USC travels to take on UCLA at 6 on ESPN2. USC has righted the ship recently, picking up 5 straight wins to keep pace with surging Arizona in the conference standings. UCLA, on the other hand, suffered a 3-game losing streak recently that knocked them out of contention for a regular season title and wounded their NCAA tournament resume. They could really use a win in this one to build momentum heading into road games at Arizona and Arizona State next week. At 6:15 on ESPN, the basketball edition of the Red River rivalry gets underway. I'm so surprised that I said that on the first take without stuttering. Texas has played inspired basketball as of late and will catch Oklahoma with a great opportunity to pick up a resume win after falling to Texas Tech in heartbreaking fashion last night. Offensively, it will probably be tough for the Longhorns to keep pace with Oklahoma in this one, but if Texas can exploit weaknesses in Oklahoma's defense, I could definitely see them picking up a win Saturday night. North Carolina is presented with a perfect opportunity to snap their ugly 3-game skid when Pittsburgh comes to town at 8 p.m. At 8:15 on ESPN, Michigan State will travel to take on Indiana. It would be very unwise of the Spartans to overlook Indiana, as the Hoosiers are an extremely tough out at home. However, Michigan State has one of the best near proximity defenses in the country, which could make it really tough on an Indiana team that relies on a big night from Juwan Morgan to win. That about does it for the headliners of Saturday's slate. Hopefully you now find yourself prepared for another great weekend of college basketball. Unfortunately, that is all the time I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe and to follow the show on Twitter at CPP Pride Report. And if you're going to subscribe, be sure to turn post notifications on as well so you know instantly when new content is posted. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this thing up right now. I'm out. I will see you guys next week.